back at Origin in 1992, and pardon, we got a helicopter flying overhead. I answered an ad in the newspaper that said game testers wanted. Didn't actually believe it was a real job. Thought it might be a psychology experiment at the University of Texas.
Exactly.
Then they'd see who would show up to that, and then guys in white lab coats would take my name down. But it was a real job, and I started testing games, and I kind of became notorious for finding bugs, but then I would also write up these long treatises about, like, well, you know, this jumping puzzle is broken, but we really shouldn't have a jumping puzzle at this part of the dungeon. It should be about, 10 levels further down, and then I would go track down the developer and corner him in his office, and then I would go find Richard, and, like, that was one of the things Richard liked about me, is, like, I had no, like, awe, like, yes, Richard,
Oh, yeah, you weren't bowing to him?
Yeah,
I
was like, hey, you know what's wrong with
work done?
And not just what's wrong with your game, you know what's wrong with your organization and how you're running these projects.
And by the way, I don't like your haircut.
No shame, and we just hit it off. Like he just loved that I just would go in there and say whatever I thought. And so when and I worked on the last QA project I worked on was a game called BioForge with Ken Demarest, and that project was had a pretty small team, so I pitched in on some like associate producer stuff, and actually they motion captured some of me for the character in there. That was like our first motion capture experience. And then after that, Ken and I started talking about, hey, this internet thing is might be big, so we should probably do something about that. And a multiplayer version of Ultima had been talked about for a few years before that, but we were the ones who really went to Richard and said, we really should make a multiplayer version of Ultima. And at that point, we codenamed it Multima.
Multima? Oh,
multiplayer Ultima. We even still, Raph, I think, still has the sign that says Multima on it. Raph Koster, designer dragon. And so we went to Richard, we badgered him continuously, and then he in turn, because there was no budget, there was no team, like this, and so he in turn went to Larry Probst and badgered Larry Probst, and Larry Probst eventually sort of he had to go to Larry like 3 times, and finally Larry's like, okay, fine, maybe the internet will happen. And you got to remember at this point,
that's like 94 or 95 you guys are doing this, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. And at this point, like, most companies didn't even have websites, right? So there was AOL and games on AOL. There was Air Warrior and Neverwinter Nights, and Genie had some stuff, and there was
Genie. Wow, you're taking me back.
Yeah, and there were MUDs and Moos, but I mean there was no large commercial industry related to this yet, and like Doom probably was the sort of biggest multiplayer thing that had happened at this point. And actually Doom for me personally was kind of an inspiration and a turning point where I said, wow, like other people are way more interesting than NPCs.
Absolutely. Hallelujah. I preach that religion all the time.
Not that you can't weave an amazing story with NPCs, and this is where Richard and I are a great yin-yang. And so he got Larry the 3rd time around. Larry sort of did the back of the napkin. Okay, like here's like some tens of thousands of dollars. Go do a prototype. And so we hired this programmer, Rick Delaschmidt, and he had worked on Legend Mud, because that was the other thing. It's like, who are we going to hire to do this? Like it's not like there were anybody out there. Except for
there was no proven formula.
Yeah, there weren't people with experience doing this. So we went to the Mud community to start out with, and that's how we got Rick in. He built a prototype that we then had the whole company sort of jump in and play. That prototype, all you could do is items would fall on the ground. You could run over the item would then pop into your inventory. If someone ran into you, the item would get knocked out of your inventory, and then they could pick it up.
Oh, interesting.
So it was just kind of like a hot potato scavenger hunt who could have the item at the end of the, and we didn't have chat, so everybody got on like conference calls, and we got the whole company, which at that point was only like 50 people, but we got everybody on the servers. Like Rick tells stories today of just like he was like just watching the server just like peg, like we ate up all the memory, like ate up all the bandwidth our company had, like, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, we got to do this. This is amazing!" And so we got approval to build a real team, and then we worked on that, and we launched it in '97, and then we got talked into doing a sequel, even though we kept saying, well, you know, we have this successful product, we should be investing in it, and we should expand it, and by the way, we'll never catch up to the feature set of the first one while we're trying to build it.
And that was because nobody had any understanding. You know, all the software products at that point where you make it, you deliver it, and then version 2, you make it and deliver it, whereas Ultima was live, or Ultima Online was live. Yeah.
Right. And it's interesting now that if you look at the industry, the sequels to MMOs have historically so far haven't done as well as the first ones. Or in our case of Ultima Online 2, they get canceled.
Right, and Ultima X Odyssey.
Yeah, and so there were a couple of runs at it. We ended up leaving. Richard and I and his brother Robert founded another company called Destination Games, and that was sort of a play on the words of we started at Origin and we ended up at our destination.
Okay.
That was us being clever. And then we got acquired by NCSoft and helped them build their sort of North American business and helped them, like, you know, the ArenaNet acquisition and the publishing deal with Cryptic for City of Heroes. And then we worked on Tabula Rasa and shipped that too early. And then we left NCSoft. And at that point, I went to Disney. And I've worked at Disney for the last 4 years. And decided to leave Disney right around GDC. And Richard and I, you know, we're good friends and we worked together for 20 years, so we talk very often. He was telling me about this project that he was about to launch, and they launched the Kickstarter at GDC, and I was like, oh, that's really interesting, and we started talking more about it, like, online, and then we met for dinner at GDC, and we just started riffing off of each other's ideas, like we do, of like, oh, well, if you do this and then that, and we're like, we gotta do this together. And that's when we started talking in earnest about, well, it would be great to work together again. I would love to be part of the project. And then I started in July, and we announced it officially at Rooster Teeth Expo, and that's kind of the snapshot.
And what is your title there? What do you do?
My title is executive producer, but we're a small team. We're like, 12 to 15 people at any given time, maybe 18 if we with some interns and contractors every now and then. So it's pretty small. So we all wear multiple hats. I'm also nominally leading the design of the project. Richard's the creative director, and he's the visionary. It's a spiritual successor to the Ultima series. It's not an Ultima.
Right. But we may be able to feel its influence there.
Right.
Absolutely. And so, I'm involved with, fundraising and the crowdfunding and the crowdsourcing, and so a little bit of everything, but running the project, so schedules and budgets, but also heavily involved in design, especially crafting, economy, multiplayer, because that's what I'm super passionate about. That's what I've always been passionate about.
Now, what's the difference between a executive producer in a video game and in the movie industry? Because an executive producer in the movie industry means the person who paid for the movie.
Right.
Did you pay for the game?
I did not pay for the game. Our amazing fans are paying for the game, and we're making a product for them in a very, what I'm really excited about, what seems like a very tight loop of feedback from them. And in some cases, like we just released the Dungeon Dev Kit, where a certain level of backers, they get these assets that we're building for free to do what they will with.
The developer level.
Yeah. And then we're putting them up on the Unity store as well, so people can purchase them there too. And yeah, but no. So in the movie industry, yes, executive producers. Well, it isn't necessarily that they paid for it, but they secured the finances for the movie.
They are the funding. Yeah.
Yeah. In the games industry, the executive producer is traditionally the person who's in charge of production. So both maintaining the vision of the project, but also running the project, the schedules and the budgets, and etc.
Yeah.
I've always sort of straddled that line of between a creative and a management role.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, Fear, you look like you got something on the tip of your tongue.
No, I just, I was
or
saying...
Or you just, drooling in awe?
Yeah, drooling in awe, yeah. I like Starr. He's a good guy. Well, we already talked about his watch already, and while we were waiting for the show. But, I've been waiting, for like 2 decades. I've always wondered, is Starr Long your real name, or is that a stage name?
That is my real name. It was 1970.
Okay, that
was a good year.
Yeah, that was a good year.
And my parents were involved in the artistic community, shall we say?
Okay, got it.
And
peace, bro.
Yeah.
Well, it's better than a friend of mine who got named Pan, just Pan. That was his whole name. Yeah.
So yes, that is my real name. It's on my birth certificate. It's on my driver's license.
Okay. I wondered if you were in another industry for a while or something.
Well, I was destined to be in the entertainment industry.
Well, you are in the entertainment industry. That's why I was curious. Because I have stage names, Fear, and stuff like that. So
But not the adult industry. So
okay.
Even though it's a perfect name for that.
It is perfect for that. So that was my big question.
Now that we've crossed that line.
I didn't go there. I just did.
Yeah, and if we had, like a marketing department or something like that, if we weren't, they would be like furiously like calling me like, be quiet, be quiet.
Yeah, don't say that.
Yeah.
Okay, so, any of you guys here got any questions for Starr here?
Yeah, I can toss one out. On the basis of names, talking about names, obviously you've been known in the past as Lord Blackthorn. I'm sure we're not going to see that being used again, but will you have a new persona that you'll put into place for Shroud of the Avatar?
Yes, great question. Yes, I was in my former life known as Lord Blackthorn, but that character stayed with Ultima and stayed with Electronic Arts. So my new persona that I've been using since then is Dark Starr.
Mm-hmm.
So Dark Starr will be a character in the game. He will have a lot of the same traits that Blackthorn did. So a lot of leaning towards chaos, not evil. Very clear, we're not evil. We just enjoy a little bit of chaos and freedom. And in fact, and as a commemorative thing for me joining the team, we actually made some items themed, some Dark Starr themed items for our backers, and they're actually in the store as well. We made a metronome, because two of my passions are watches and music, so we made a metronome with this death themed metronome, and a moon dial, so that was sort of our timepiece nod. Which is this moon dial. So because the phases of the moon are going to be very important to gameplay of when you can do certain spells or open certain areas.
Nice.
So tell us what speaking of gameplay, tell us what you're most excited about in Shroud of the Avatar as far as when you get in to play.
Yeah. Well, I think I'll talk about two different sides of the coin, which actually kind of mirror the two sides of the coins that Richard and I are. So one thing, as a player, I'm just super excited to get another incredibly well-crafted narrative experience as a player that's not just about go kill the bad guy. Mm-hmm. That talks about, how you act as a person, that things aren't what they appear. People you think are good aren't necessarily good. People that you think are bad aren't necessarily bad. Choices you make really matter. I'm really excited to the work that Richard and Tracy Hickman are doing on the story, the first episode. That kind of single player RPG narrative experience is we're keeping it very close to our vest, because a lot of the reveals that will happen are pretty interesting, and so I'm excited just to do that, just to play that single player experience. But I think on the other side of that, I think that how the players are going to interact with each other. For instance, our crafting system. The thing I'm trying to hold our team to is that things that the players create are at least as good, if not better, than anything you can find in it. And everything you make is going to have a maker's mark. We're going to put a lot of systems in place to get player-made items into the ecosystem as you're playing. So for instance, when you make an item, like if you make some swords and then you sell them to a shopkeeper, those then enter into the world, and so another player can buy those from the shopkeeper, or if that player might have gotten killed down in a dungeon, so the next person who fights that Lich Lord at the bottom of the dungeon will find that sword that you made, that some other guy made, or so we want, when people find items in the world, we want those to be items that other players have made, and we want them to be incredibly powerful. And so I think that's going to create a lot of interest, and I think that combined with how we're going to do housing, which is much more like we did in Ultima Online, where there is a finite amount of land that will release every episode, and so that land will have value. In fact, that's one of the benefits for being an early backer, or is that you're going to get earlier access to pick your plot of land. Then you'll be able to run make things and then sell them through that. So I think the economy and the player crafting is going to be pretty interesting, and I think that the idea that you'll be able to go kill a boss out there and find an item that another player made is a pretty unique twist on.
So we're going to get looted by the creatures that kill us, huh?
Well, it might not be. It will definitely appear that way. Whether this creature actually takes your item, or whether it's more like on the back end, I make a bunch of swords, I sell them in the marketplace. Those then get circulated into the system, and so an orc chief may end up with that sword somehow.
Interesting.
Speaking
of orcs, are there going to be playable orcs? Any
no,
talk of that?
Not episode 1. You're playing as a human, and again, the fiction is much like Ultima's. The storyline was always that it's you going to another land, like you as a person who lives on Earth is transported to this mystical realm, and so that's the storyline here. It's really you going there, and so you're a human, and that's in episode 1. It's humans.
I just remember the fun we all had wearing orc helms, pretending we were orcs.
Oh yeah, and like taking over the orc village from the actual orcs.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome. There'll perhaps be similar opportunities like that.
We have a question from the chat room from Drokus, and he says, "What types of mechanics will help enforce player accountability?"
That's a great question. So like in Ultima Online, I'm guessing they're asking for things like in Ultima Online we have the reputation system. That's not actually a system we have designed yet, but we definitely want something like that. There is going to be and this is one of those reveal twists that we're not revealing just yet, but there's definitely going to be paths that you can take that will be obvious to other players what path you have chosen. And that's about all I can say without Richard killing me.
Okay. Well, let me just bury you a little bit deeper here. He also asks, how do choices that players make really matter to other players?
Oh, that is a really good one, but again...
Well, if you can't answer, you can just say that, but He's got some
it's
great
really
questions.
cool, and I wish I could tell you guys. I really wish I could tell you guys. But it'll be cool. That's what I can say.
Okay. Well, we expect coolness.
Okay.
So, okay, you guys, got any questions? And I understand that people are not able to join the hangout after we puked and did whatever happened. Apparently, nobody else can join, so it's just us in the party.
Oh no!
Oh
Yeah.
no!
Yeah.
Should we restart it or something? Or?
Oh no. No.
Okay.
Well, I have a list of questions that people have sent me on the official forums. Maybe I can throw those out.
Cool.
Sounds
Yeah.
great.
Okay, so the one that came up late last night dealt with players forming relationships with NPCs, and they talked about, like even maybe getting married to an NPC.
Sounds like a
apparently,
blow-up doll.
yeah, apparently that's. So the justification behind it was, this is new to me, by the way, but the justification was that if you are in a fantasy role-playing environment, relationships are normal. But in real life, you might have a wife that gets upset with you forming a relationship with another player, but it would be okay to form a relationship with the serving wench in the tavern.
It's very interesting question. Very, and I really like the thinking that went behind that question of why one would be better than the other. So right now, at least in episode 1, I don't think we're going to have that kind of relationship building mechanic with NPCs. Our goal with, and this is sort of not the answer they're looking for, but this is kind of a meta answer for a lot of some of these things, is we're really trying to keep episode 1 pretty tight because we really want to get a product out there quickly to the backers with the money we have. And so there's a lot of features we want and that we'll hopefully get to do in episodes 2 and 3, and so that's one of the ones we've discussed, but not something we'll have for us.
Okay, how about another different one?
Okay.
Is death of a player considered a failure that needs to be punished?
Well, I think that there should. I mean, we all sort of philosophically believe that there's should be some consequence of that. What that consequence is, whether it's time, and time can mean a lot of things. Time can mean the time it takes you to recover your body. Time can mean the time it takes for you to recover from being killed. Time could be experience points lost that you have to regain. A penalty could be money, or it could be a combination of the two. Like, you have to spend money to, obviate that penalty that you just incurred. So there will be some penalty associated with death, commensurate to how a lot of games handle it. Exactly how we're going to do that is actually not something we've finished designing yet. It's something we debate a lot of what that consequence is. We want it to feel real, and you not want to die, but we also don't want to penalize you so much that you don't want to play when that happens. And at the same time, the other goal that would be really nice to have is to make it interesting. I mean, that's what we tried to do back in Ultima Online, is like make death interesting. So that's why you had the ghosts, and when ghosts tried to talk, it all came out as, ooh, unless they had the skill, spirit speak, and they could talk to the ghosts. And so we tried to make a sort of mini game out of, just to make the experience of death interesting in and of itself, while also having a penalty associated with it. Now, having your corpse fully lootable so other people could take care of everything, that's a pretty harsh penalty, and had some unintended side effects where, like, no one would go around, like, whenever you collected really good gear, you never actually used it. You hoarded it in your bank or your house, because if you didn't want to lose your best gear when you died. So then it's like, well, why have good gear at all if no one's going to use it? So that's a sort of interesting debate that we go back and forth about what that penalty is and how severe it should be.
Yeah, the gear is an interesting topic because there's a lot of people that don't want interesting gear. They want it totally the player. So but I'm not a fan of that.
We're gonna have a combination. So I mean, your player is going to build up skills and abilities over time, and that'll affect the way you engage with combat or with crafting. But there will also be gear, and like I was saying earlier, the most interesting gear is gear that players make or modify.
That's right. I am a fan of the player-made gear being more powerful than stuff they can find in the world. Except what you said earlier, the stuff they find will be what players make. So.
Yeah.
I'll be quiet now and let someone else ask, but I have a whole list.
I can throw out one. I've been watching Portalarium and Richard for I don't know, about 2 years now, and I've never stopped being blown away by the continual surprises. Most recently, you joining on board. So I have to ask, can I kind of just relax now and say, okay, I'm not going to get hit by a 2x4 in the back of the head with another huge surprise? Or are there some other ones in the works? Are there still some other Origin devs being talked to that we might get hit with down the road, things like that?
Anything is possible. Right now, with where our funding sits and the project we want to make, we're probably not going to expand much further than we have already. But again, anything could happen. I mean, we could see big spikes in funding that would change that. If people want more content or more features, and they fund us to do that, then sure, anything is possible. I mean, we're still. I mean, as you can imagine, those of us who went through Origin University, as we sometimes call it, our alma mater, we all remain fairly tight, and we all sort of talk to each other, and and we all end up somehow working together again. Like, I mean, Raph Koster and I were at Disney at the same time, randomly through a series of acquisitions that Disney made. Like, and so nothing's outside the realm of possibility, but in the near term, probably not. I think you can relax for a little.
Okay. How is the budget going?
We're great. I mean, we feel pretty confident that we have what we need to, get a playable version by the end of the year, and then another version in the spring. More always helps. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to make the community feel like we're pressuring them, or that we're saying, oh, give us more money. Like, really what we're trying to do now is just focus on, hey, this is what we're building. These are the opportunities. If people want to, back us more, or they want to bring in more, if we can attract more backers, great. But we're really trying to focus on living within our means.
There was a question in chat. Vexdracker, he says, and it goes right into this. Does the amount of one's backing determine how much content you have access to in the first couple of episodes?
Let me see if I understand the question correctly. I think he's asking
if you pay more, do you get more stuff?
No. Well, I mean, we have some exclusive items tied to the backing tiers, and one of the prime benefits to higher levels of being a higher level backer is that's the order of access that you'll get for the real estate in the game. So the land rush, the order of the land rush happens at the level of backer that you are. Mm-hmm. So if you want the prime city block in the in the capital city next to the castle, then you're going to fund at the highest levels. That's probably right now the highest driver is real estate and housing, based on your level of value. But as far as, like, are you going to get more content of the campaign, the narrative? No. It's right now it's only some order of access and a few exclusive items.
So a $15 backer is going to have a very similar experience to a $1,500 backer. It's just they may have a few more items.
Yeah, and again, that $1,500 backer is going to start out with a house, whereas the $15 backer is going to have to earn the money to buy a house.
Which may be more fun than having had it in the first place.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it really just depends on... Yeah, and so given your investment in the time in the game, you'll be able to have the same exact experience.
So NPCs will not treat players differently based on whether they're a baron or a peasant.
Not in a gameplay affecting way. They may address you with honorifics and you know, a little more kowtowing maybe, but it's not like you're going to get an advantage, like you're going to get a clue to where the dungeon is faster just because you spent more money. No, absolutely.
Stalemate. Let's see here.
Okay, well...
Oh, go ahead.
If you have one from the room, go ahead, but I have a whole list.
Wild asks, is there going to be events crafted by some kind of event managers or game masters, like in UO? How does this interface with the selective multiplayer system?
That is a great question. We will for episode 1. We're probably not going to have any kind of sophisticated event management system, just because it's probably outside of the scope of we definitely want to have something like that in the long term, but probably nothing sophisticated to start out with. But we definitely want to have events.
So, like towns being under siege by whoever the enemy is?
That's actually built. We're building that to be part of the game system, the simulation level. So much like we did in Tabula Rasa, that'll happen at a system level. It doesn't actually require game master intervention. That just sort of happens.
Will it be triggered by what the players do, or will it be on a schedule?
You'll have to play to find out.
They will.
Yinkle, I think I'm pronouncing it right. You know these people's names. Can Mr. Long tell us more about the thief class? Can they steal other players' stuff? And can you insure items?
Great question. We will have rogue-like abilities. Whether they actually allow you to take other people's stuff, I don't know. We haven't designed those abilities yet.
But you want to be able to steal, and Richard doesn't want it, does he?
Right.
No, Richard would totally be into it. He tells a great story about trying to stop a thief and the thief was like, oh yeah, of course I'll stop, and the thief then turned right around and did it again later, and Richard's like, I just told you just told me, and he's like, yeah, but Richard, I'm role playing a thief, of course I'm going to tell you I'm going to stop and go do it again, that's what thieves do. So we think it's a very interesting role playing mechanic. It's a pretty hard system to balance, so it may be something that's out of scope for episode 1, but I would definitely like to have some roguelike abilities in one.
I can tell you one of the most memorable experiences for me in the game was when Ronald McDonald stole all of my stuff while I was talking to him. Every single thing I had, put it all in a bag, and then said, oh, hey, are you going to see so-and-so today? And I'm like, yeah, I'll see her later today. He's like, oh, here's a bag of stuff. Can you give this to her when you see her? And I'm like, sure. So I stopped by her place on the way back to mine. I dropped this bag off of stuff, and all of a sudden I can't recall home because he had stolen all of my stuff, and then I dropped it into her secure container so I couldn't get it back out.
Oh, my God.
And, and it was just brilliant. An NPC would never do that. you know.
Yeah.
And it was fun. And I was just happy that I talked to him and he didn't kill me and dismember me, you know.
Yeah, a couple of the questions that I was given to ask deal with stealing, and if you have the ability to steal, there should be an ability that allows you to protect yourself from being stolen from. And then they wanted to know, is there a way that you can wear a disguise to travel more freely if you've become wanted, and how do you feel about bounty hunting?
So I think those are all really, really interesting things that we can and want to do. I really want to have compelling PvP of some kind, and again, as I mentioned, there will be paths that players can take. We're not really revealing too much about it for two reasons. One, some of the pathing that you can take is related to the story and the narrative. Like we wanted to make the choices you make not just with other players but with the story itself to affect that. As you can tell, I'm dancing around a lot right now, trying not to give away things I'm not supposed to give away. So that's one reason I'm being a little bit cagey. The other reason is to be, totally transparent. And one of the things we're trying to be with this project is completely transparent. Like we're showing stuff as we're making it in real time. Like in our weekly dev hangouts, like, hey, look, we just built this, or what do you guys think? And if we get feedback, we change it. And so we haven't really designed our PvP yet, to be totally honest. So I don't know is a big part of the answer. We know how we want it to be from a narrative standpoint, but we don't mechanically know exactly how it's going to work yet. So that's a very honest answer.
Interesting.
You're obviously getting a lot of the old school players like myself and the roleplay crowd. Do you think this is going to attract a lot of the more modern MMO players, the WoW players, if you will?
We would really like to. Right now we definitely are building a product for those people who played Ultima and Ultima Online. We're very open and honest about that's the product we're building. We would love to attract, a newer, possibly younger audience too. That would be great. That would kind of be icing for us, really, though. And so, I think that what we hope to do is, two things to note. One, we're not a AAA title. Like we don't have the funding. We're not trying to compete with AAA titles. We're an indie game through and through, which has amazing pluses. Like we get to make all our decisions. We're not beholden to a publisher. The only real minus is you don't get access to the giant mountains of cash you do so we can't compete on a content standpoint. That's just so we're building the product that we can, being really tight and small, and it's, I think that with that, I think we're going to be, with all of those caveats, I think we're going to be able to offer an alternative that people don't have right now. I think the way we're doing multiplayer, I think the way we're really pushing for, the economy and crafting to have such a high level of importance, I think like right now of any of the sort of big successful MMOs, I think probably EVE is the only thing I think that has such has a player economy, and I think Star Citizen is definitely going to have some aspects of that as well. But I think we're going to offer a pretty compelling alternative to a newer crowd that maybe didn't experience Ultima Online in its day or the Ultima series.
Yeah, the trick is just getting them to try it.
Yeah, really, and convince them like, why is this different? Why is this I won't say better, but why is this a different experience that I should try?
It's a must-see experience.
Yeah.
Well, and that's you got a lot of vocal people running around that talk about it. We've been talking about this game for, even though we haven't played it in, a decade or so, we still talk about it like we're just there yesterday. How do you think this? This project is really nice because I like the way how you guys are. You're involving the community more than I've seen pretty much anywhere else. you're trying to really work with them to make the product they want. You're upfront about it. You're honest about it. A lot of the bigger companies definitely don't have that kind of relationship with the players, and you guys always had that kind of relationship with your players, even back, in the late '90s and 2000s. I mean, you guys were always like that. I think a lot of people find that really refreshing, and it'll keep us around because of that. I mean, I'm back. You haven't even made my PvP yet, and I'm sitting there waiting. It's all good. We'll get it.
Okay, I got a question from chat again. It's from Killer Bees. He says, with crafting, will it be tiered? As in, the better crafter you become, will you be able to make better items, or will it be the time invested dictates how good an item becomes?
Great question. Right now, as we're building it, you build up the ability to make better and better items over time. And so, and it's also determined by the quality of the resources that you have access to. And with that said, you can always try to make better things. You're lowering your, you're increasing the chance over time to make a better and better item. It's a lot harder to make a really powerful item when you first start out. You can try, but it's going to be pretty hard.
Or you're just lucky.
Or you get super lucky.
And then you try and replicate that success, and you're like, what's wrong?
Yeah.
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 Okay, well, I want to ask about, I don't even know what it's called. There's a system where the NPCs recognize your speech when you type something to them, and they respond to you. Is that an engine that could be separate from the game so that you could probably post on the website so that people can interact with it and help improve it before it has to go into the game?
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, that's something we should talk about with the team. Although we're not too far off from we're going to have a playable version by the end of the year. So, people will be able to interact with that system. They'll get their hands on it before Christmas. So, but getting something sooner than that, separate from the game, that's interesting. We'll have to talk. I'll talk about it with the team.
There's one thing I thought of with that, which was that when we saw in some of the demo stuff, typing in the stuff. Well, Google Voice these days, or just talking to your Android phone and everything, is absolutely amazing on how good it gets to the stuff. It gets some words that I'm like going, there's no way I just test it, and so what would be the possibility of, instead of having to type, that I can just talk to the game?
We would love to do that. That would definitely be a level of funding that we don't have yet. But that would be something. We would love to do something like that.
Well, what about now? Google does offer a lot of things for free, and I don't know what they offer here in the voice detection, but I do know that there are some other games out there right now that are using some features from Google that for like account security, like Google Authenticator games are now coming with that, and so it's just got me thinking about whether or not those things could be applied to the game.
I'll look into it. I'm pretty sure though that their voice recognition codec is not something they're giving out. But I'll look into it. But I'm pretty sure that they're not.
I just think that would make the game awesomer.
I agree.
I know that's not a word, but Google Voice even gets the words like gihugic and ginormous. It actually spells them even though they're not real words. It's
nice.
Kind of funny. Yeah. So
they've got some good nerds over there at Google.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing what they do. So we've got a couple of people here that are here in the hangout. We got Brian and we got Matt, who have not spoken a single word since we started. Either one of you have something you want to say?
I mean, I got only one question. Will the game be released also in German, if I'm allowed to ask that? That's one of my first questions.
Yeah. Hopefully, I remember this correctly, but I think that one of our stretch goals was a German translation. So I think we hit that stretch goal. So I think we are planning on it. Yes.
Okay. So, in the case, I mean, that's a deeper question. Maybe it's not the right place to ask such questions, but if you're planning on a German version, are you planning to not hire people, but to get support by Germans, for example, to do a QA test on the version and so on and so on? Because I would appreciate to do that.
Well, absolutely. So we want to use our community as much as possible as they're willing to help us out. I mean, that's how we're doing. Like, we're crowdsourcing a lot of the art. So and we just released the dungeon dev kit, so people can build dungeon sets and submit those to us for inclusion in the game. So having help with QA and translations and things like that is definitely something we're going to look to the community to help us with.
Mm-hmm. No, that's good. That's
and compensate. Like, we compensate for all of that stuff. So any art submitted to the game that we use, we compensate for. Like, we pay the person who submits us for that. Like, it's not just a donation. Like, we pay you guys for helping us.
Okay.
Okay, I hate to interrupt, but you need to say that one of the options for compensation is double credit for raising your pledge.
Yes. Yes, thank you for reminding me. Yeah, so if you submit enough content, or you quote work for us enough, you can actually raise the level of your pledge, and you'll get access to newer, better things that at twice the rate we would pay you back in cash.
Okay, that sounds good.
That's awesome.
Yep, that's quite awesome, definitely.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. These guys are awesome.
No, I was asking that question because I work also in this industry, and I would like to invest my spare time as well for some good projects.
Nice.
We would love to have your help, for sure.
Okay.
Okay, we got time for just a couple more questions here. Matt, speak up now or forever hold your peace if you've got any questions. Okay. So, any final stuff from you guys here in the Hangout?
I would just like to say it's great to see you on the team, Starr. It was a fantastic announcement. It was definitely a surprise for me, and I was like, wow, I'm glad I pledged in on this early and get to partake.
Yeah.
Well, I'm honored. Thank you.
Here.
We're all
building
just so
some
happy
dungeons,
to
Mark.
be here.
We are. me and Marky are going to build a PK dungeon. I think that's
Awesome.
where we're going to go.
Wait, Frank, did you have any more questions from your list?
Yeah, I had a couple more, but you killed most of them with your. We haven't done PvP yet. People have been sending me a lot of PvP questions, which is weird because I don't like PvP. So economy. Okay. There's something here about someone wants to use a barter system instead of gold. What's the economy going to be based on, and how are you going to control inflation and things like that?
Great question. So players will be able to do secure trades between each other, and all of those trades, even though we do a lot of the server work amongst the players' machines, any transactions of any kind, either between players or between players and the system, all those transactions go through our servers that are verified. So, and we're already going to be maintaining a variable exchange rate, and so we'll control inflation by we're already building in metrics that show how fast people are earning cash, or how when they're doing trades and whatever percentage goes between those. although trades between players are kind of zero sum for us, that's sort of a wash. It's really what we're really more concerned with is like what a player's earn rate in the game is, and how we balance that against what they can purchase with them. So that's something like we're building all the metrics in from the ground up, so we can just monitor that and make sure that things because people are going to possibly be going between the single player campaign and multiplayer adventures together. That's stuff we have to monitor really carefully.
So it's going to be gold. You're going to use some sort of coinage.
Yeah, there'll be coins, but players can trade items directly. Players can barter items to each other. Now, if you go to a shop, like a NPC shopkeeper, he's only going to accept coin. He's not going to accept items. And when you sell him items, he's going to give you coins for those items.
Is coin going to have weight?
There's a distinct possibility. There's a distinct possibility. Like there's definitely going to be encumbrance in the game, and that's going to have a real impact on what you're able to do. So, and that's really important for us because as of now, it's going to be classless. It's really going to be based on abilities. So if you want to do the wizard, but he's wearing full plate mail, you can do that.
Gotta work
but
out.
You're going to have some severe penalties based on, the fact that you're weighted down with the full set of plate mail, and you're not going to be able to move as quickly and make the gestures that you might need, and you won't be able to carry as many reagents because of all the weight on that plate mail.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear about encumbrance, but when money causes encumbrance, when I've got my big bag of gold and I'm headed for the shop to buy my brand new suit of armor, I don't want fear to see me lumbering down the street slowly and going, I bet he's carrying a bag of gold.
Is that a bag of gold in your pocket or what?
You're just glad to see me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we actually have gone, just fairly recently, we're going back and forth about whether money has weight or not. And I don't remember where we ended up in the last debate. It's changed, we change our mind literally every time we have the debate about it.
Well, in Ultima Online, there was the gold had weight, but then I believe when you were at the bank, you could turn it into checks.
Yeah, they had checks.
Bank drafts.
Yeah.
Because you will have items that the players have a huge perceived value on that is much higher than anything that you guys would imagine, and we saw that in Ultima Online with the rares market. There was items that were never intended to be owned by players, and some of them went for enormous amounts of money, and the transaction from one person to another could be quite sketchy, especially if you have so much gold that you have to do 30 transfers of gold from one person to another just to pay for the one item that's going to go over to the other person. So,
but you still talk about that.
What's that?
But you still talk about that.
Well, yeah, and now, and what that caused was it caused middlemen to pop up, trusted middlemen, brokers. Who's one of the original brokers?
There he is.
And we would charge, a security fee, to make sure that you didn't get ripped off. And and there was a whole economy around that. And in fact, I made a lot of real life money around that too. So speaking of real life money around this stuff, what is the current thoughts on any transactions that happen for real world cash player to player?
Great question.
So as of now, you're not going to be able to. You can't pay somebody real dollars through the game.
Right.
You can use real dollars to purchase game currency, and you can use that game currency to trade.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not going to allow direct transfer of dollars between players.
Mm-hmm. And when you say you're not going to allow it, does that mean that you won't have anything to facilitate it, or that you'll bring out the other finely crafted weapon called the banhammer when two players partake in this?
Well, oh, you mean like, are we going to try and police it outside the game?
Sure,
Is it going to be against the policies?
I don't have an answer to that.
Okay. So, fair enough.
Not yet.
Not yet. Someone will force the issue, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what makes it so fun and exciting.
He's
Yeah.
over there.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, well, plenty of experience around that issue. Okay, well, I think that is about it for our time today. And, Starr, thank you very much for joining us. What? Fear? You're looking
I'm bummed. I mean, you don't get to see the guy but once every 10 years.
I know. Well, Starr, yeah, we should get you back on the show. When you have the answer to one of these questions that you skirted around and you would like to share it, please schedule to come back on the show and let us grill you and get the satisfaction of getting the answer from you.
That's a promise.
So, okay. Well, thank you very much. And all of you that made it into the Hangout today, thank you. I am sorry, whatever it was, that hiccup that we had, but it caused nobody else. It said the party was over when everybody tried to join after this. So we're lucky it happened in the first place. It was an exclusive party. So
Next time.
Okay. Yep. Next time. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Thanks.